Hey, it's Dave. Welcome back to my channel. So that was a little solo there from one of these nights by the Eagles. Don Felder, one of my favorite players. Like I said before, I'm really looking forward to, and I hope this happens, that Felder and Walsh can get back and stop playing together because I think that would be something that's great that's missing out there. You know, it's funny. I wanted to respond to. There's a bunch of episodes on their YouTube channels about Gibson, and everybody has this opinion of Gibson of quality. I worked in a music store from 2006 to about 2012, the end of 2012, and I can tell you that they're always going to have problems. And they're always going to make great stuff. They make great stuff and they make mistakes. They make a lot of mistakes. I think Henry has plans for the future and thinks he knows the direction of the future of guitars. And unfortunately, he doesn't. But the problem is more like Gibson's market is really into that historic market. And it's really into the classic Les Paul, the classic SG, and those classic instruments, the Firebird and whatnot. And then if you want to come up with a modern instrument, then have it separate. But when you start making these hybrid instruments where you don't really have, like, it's taking place of the regular standard Les Paul, you're going to have fight back from the people because that's not who you are. You're a classic company. That's what you are. I mean, you've been around since the turn of the century, of the 20th century, and that's what you do. And companies like Jackson and Kramer, when they came out in the late 70s, early 80s, everybody thought like that was going to be the end all be all, and everything's cyclical, and then Guns N' Roses came out and Nirvana came out, and everyone started looking for the vintage guitars, and vintage is still in vogue a little bit, but now there's the metal guitars get back and some of the Ibanez stuff gets back, and everything is cyclical. But there's a lot of hate for Gibson for how they run their company and whatnot. And take it from somebody that's had a lot of experience with Gibson. They do what they do to try to protect their brand. They're not the greatest at it, and they're not the greatest at trying to appease to people, and they like to, they do their thing. That's the thing I'm going to say about it. But if you want a Les Paul, buy a Les Paul. Guitars are great. I had two 58 Les Pauls. I had a Les Paul plain top, and I had a Les Paul 58 historic. That was a flame top. It was called the Cloud 9 series. It was a fantastic guitar. I ended up selling it because I asked somebody for the right price. They gave me the right price for it, for what I wanted for it, and I never played it. And I honestly thought like I would be happier knowing that somebody played that as their main instrument and that was like their thing, whereas it was under my bed all the time, and it was just like, what am I doing? Now I really just kind of like try to keep the guitars that I'm going to be using. If I'm going to play with them and play them and gig with them, then I'll have them. I'm more of a flat top player. I tend to like the flat top guitars. It's just how I started. I remember my first electric guitar was a Aria Pro 2 ZZ Deluxe with a maple fingerboard. It was a one-piece maple, actually. It was a one-piece maple neck with a walnut stripe in the back. I got it from South Shore Music in Weymouth. I want to say around 1983 with a PV Bandit 65. That was my first electric guitar. My second electric guitar I bought was a Kramer Pacer Deluxe that I ordered through Mark Harris at Norfolk County Music in Dedham, Mass. I bought that, and I bought a Crate G40C. The funny thing is, so I got rid of that guitar. Let's see, I still have the neck to the Aria. It's on a Strat body. The Pacer I got rid of around 1990 when I started collecting Berettas. So I got rid of that kind of early. But that Crate lasted, I think, till like 2004, and all of a sudden it just died. I took it to an amp guy, and he was like, for him to go through it, he was like, it's going to cost more than it's worth. I said, all right, let's just toss it. So I did. Um, and I was playing Berettas up until about 2004 when I switched over to Strats. Um, I did a gig. I'll tell you a funny story. So I did a gig. I had a really good friend who was John Taylor from Duran Duran's personal trainer at Gold's Gym in Venice. And John and I were very friendly. And John and I were one day talking about the album Queen 2 and how we both loved that album.
Great record.
Excellent album. We learned a lot from
Great
it.
record.
You know, we were just telling stories back and forth and just about certain songs and whatnot. And out of the blue, he says, my guitar player's out of town and I got a gig at the Mayan. Do you want to do it? I was like, okay. So he said, well, I'll drop off the stuff, the material for you. So he dropped off a couple of CDs at my house. And I listened to a couple of songs and I'm like, ooh. And I called him up and I'm like, listen, I don't have a Strat and it's definitely a Strat sound. I'll rent a Strat for the gig. And he was like, no, I have a Strat. I'll drop it off at your house. So like then the next day I go to my house and my roommate's like, John Taylor from Duran Duran stopped by. So I'm like, oh yeah, he said he was dropping off a Strat. So I go in my room and on my bed, in the case, I open it up and I'm like, this is a 59 Strat back in around 1998. I think it was 98. Yeah, it was probably worth about 15,000. So I called him up and I said, you just dropped a $15,000 guitar off at my house? And he was like, oh, is that what that's worth? Whew, that's what I paid. I'm like, oh my God. But anyways, it was a great guitar. It was actually one of the better Strats from that era that I played that I really liked. And at the time, Randy Piper of Wasp was a student of mine and a great player in his own right. And he had come over like one afternoon that week, and we were talking about what I was going to do the gig with, and I had my dual rectifier, and I really, I always had just played my own stuff, and I never even had a pedal board. I had one pedal. And he was like, oh, I have this pedal board you can use. So I ended up using Randy Piper's pedal board from Wasp, my rig, and John Taylor's 59 Strat for this gig that we played at the Mayan. I'm trying to think of who opened up for John. I can't remember if it was Rob Zombie. Rob Zombie might have been there. And also Phantom Planet, I think was the name of the band with... was it Jason Schwartzman who was the drummer in that band? I can't remember who the drummer was. He was an actor. And they were good. It was good. We had a great time. That was like my very first... I think it was like my first real gig playing for somebody else. It was shortly after that I got to work with Danny Cimbello, who recently passed away. Danny had a studio in Venice, and I ended up getting session work right after that, working for Danny. And Danny's brother Michael, who that's another video for another day, talking about Michael Cimbello. Awesome guitar player, great singer, great songwriter. But we had some interesting history. He's a great guy, but he was going through a divorce when I first met him, and it was a somewhat hairy situation. He was drinking quite a bit, and it was just, let's say we didn't see eye to eye on a lot of things. And but Danny was great. Danny was, he was a good guy to work for. Like I said, that was one of my very first sessions, and from those sessions, then I got to meet and work with Lee Carreri, and that was really like such a big springboard jump for me, because Lee. Well, not only just being a great piano player, musician, but he really was this technically proficient in Pro Tools and Digital Performer. I think we used in the beginning, like 2.6. I think we were on when we started, and Logic, and it was just great. That was a lot of good times. So then around 2004 was right when I really switched to the Stratocaster, and that's become my guitar ever since. That's really what I play. Even with humbuckers, I like it. Like I'd rather play a Strat with humbuckers than play like a Les Paul style guitar. They're just awkward for me. Although I did gig a few gigs out. I remember I played at the Whiskey and I used David Paul, who's one of the Barbarian brothers and a very good friend of mine. He had this gorgeous Les Paul. It was like a tie-dye Les Paul. And he kept bugging me. He's like, I want you to play it. I want you to. So when the Big Angry did a gig up at the Whiskey, I ended up using that. And it's a great guitar for drop D. His guitar just sounded great. It was excellent. But again, not an instrument I'm very comfortable. I mean, I have a buddy of mine, Howie Simon. This guy, if you want to look up a great shredder guitar player, he's a monster in the LA scene. And Howie plays Strats. He can jump from Strats to Les Pauls, no problem. And, he likes bouncing between both. I mean, and to me, it's like one's just so foreign to me. The Les Paul is so foreign to me that I'm always like, wow, it's very cool when I see someone be able to pick up like that two different style of guitar and be that comfortable on it. Anyways, I really didn't have much to say today. I saw that article about, people just ripping on. I mean, it wasn't an article. I seen it like on YouTube, like so many people just saying all these things about like Gibson and why Gibson sucks and all this stuff. And it's like, listen, everybody likes something different. They're out there making money. I mean, I don't think they really run that well. I mean, that's just my own personal opinion. But I wouldn't make grandiose, over-the-top statements like, about them. I just think that that's kind of like defeatist. They make a great guitar. Their customer service could be better. It's hard not to sacrifice quality control when you're working on such a grandiose level and you're so big. And I think Fender's in that same boat. And I just think like, if you can go to a company like G&L, I was just playing a G&L, that make a fantastic guitar for under $2,000 made in the USA. How can you, and if you want to buy something even overseas, their Indonesian guitar that I used on the Josie video and a few other videos, it's fantastic. It's a great instrument. There's lots of great instruments out there, and it's funny because, we talk about the whole thing with woods. But the right pickup and the right strings are going to be what your guitar sound is and where that pickup is. And you can sit there and people will sit there and say like, oh, yeah, mahogany's going to sound. No, it isn't. I watched a video the other day of that pedal show, and Rubia was on from Andertons. And he's talking about the Chapman guitar, and he's like, oh, it's like a walnut guitar for clarity, and it's like, no, the wood in the neck is not going to do anything for clarity. The board is not going to give you warmth. You're not going to have this mixture of we want warmth, so we used mahogany body, and then we used walnut or babinga or whatever he said. Well, I think he said babinga. We use babinga for clarity. Oh, really? Like you're EQing the whole guitar because you can decide what woods? It has nothing to do with the sound of the guitar. How many times do you listen to a Strat on a record and like, that's a Strat. You couldn't tell me what kind of wood was on it. You wouldn't know anything. If I built a mahogany Strat and painted it with a solid color, opaque, you couldn't see the wood. You wouldn't have any idea. If I sat across from you playing the guitar, you wouldn't know what the hell the thing was made of, and it wouldn't sound any different than any other Strat. A lot of people are hearing what the forced resonance sounds off the guitar when they're playing it, and they think that's kind of affect what's coming out of the amp. It doesn't. Whew. That being said, that thing about Rubia was driving me nuts because it really, for the guys on that show, on that pedal show, who I really think, Mick here, Dan here, I really think those guys are intelligent and they're good players and they're smart, and it's the same word as intelligent, but just a different spelling. Thank you. But they're smart guys, and it's like, you could sit there and talk about, these pedals all sound a little bit different, but then don't sit there and bring on a guy who's going to sell you the fact that the guitar, this neck is babinga for clarity, and have, I think it was Dan, I don't even know which guy's which, the bald dude, is just like, oh, yeah. No. And to sell that like that is just, seriously, it's criminal. But that's the guitar business. And I've been in the business, and I've been in the manufacturing side. And all you guys who want to argue with me can argue with me all you want. It doesn't matter. You're not going to win an argument with me because you can't argue against the science. And it's very funny if you ever go to the I don't know if they do tours, but at the original G&L factory, which used to be called CLF Manufacturing back when they used to make music bands, Leo has an office. And the office they leave pretty much has Leo left it before he died. So you can go in there and they have these this body to a guitar that's like on a block like this, and then there's nothing. And then you go up, and then it goes back up where the tuners are, so you can string the guitar up, but there's nothing in the whole middle from the bridge to here. It's all just empty. And then they have these blocks of wood that actually look like this speaker. It's like, let me just show you. It's like a block like this, and they have a pickup on it that goes across like this. And they just slide the pickup, and that's where, and angle it, and they would slide it and angle it. And that's where Leo would, on the drafts table with George, would figure out where the pickup should go because they can just hear it on this big table. Now, when you go and you play it on the table and you go and they do the bass, same thing with the bass. There are these jigs that he figured out where the pickups would go. It sounds the same. You can't tell the difference. It doesn't matter. But anyways, I'm all over the place here. I just thought I would come up and do a video. I've hit 500 subscribers, which I thank you all. Also, I will be posting something about Skype lessons. I do Skype lessons. I have a few students still in LA that when I left LA to come here to help my dad, I had a bunch of students there, and I still have a few that I do with Skype. And I will be opening up my schedule a little bit to add some Skype students if you wanted to do that. And then also some other people put a donate button. I don't really know much about that. I see they have this Pantheon or whatever and stuff, but I just don't know. I don't know what to even say about it. I appreciate it. I'll say that. I appreciate the love. Anyways, that's it for today. And very good.
You're right on target. You hit the nail right on the head with your comments, what you're saying today. Right on the money, everything you said. You're 150% correct.
How's that for a topper?